Okay, let's dive in. Mars, right? For centuries, it's been this silent neighbor, usually pictured as just, red dust and rocks.
Right, desolate is the common image. Empty.
Exactly. But what if some sources, some interpretations, suggest something, well, completely different? A hidden history, maybe even a hidden present, right there.
And that's where things get really interesting. You have independent researchers looking at the available data and piecing together narratives that are just radically different from official accounts.
Okay.
So for this deep dive, we're focusing on one specific, pretty provocative source,
Hmm.
an online video from Secure Team. They've compiled what they consider compelling visual arguments
Arguments for what exactly?
for life on Mars, for artificial structures, evidence of a really dramatic past. Our goal today is to explore the specific claims and the visual evidence as this source presents it.
Gotcha. So we're looking at how they interpret these images.
Precisely. Helping you understand their assertions and the kind of alternative views that are out there. And it's crucial to remember this source relies heavily on visual interpretation. We'll describe what they point out.
Okay. And the scope here is huge, right? We're talking tiny moving things, maybe huge underground cities, ancient wars, even alleged cover-ups.
That's the full picture this source paints, yeah. From the very small to the potentially civilization level.
All right, so buckle up, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like this is going to be quite the exploration of, well, another Mars.
Definitely a different perspective.
So where does this source begin? How do they start building this case?
Well, they come out swinging, really, presenting what they call very interesting new Mars rover images.
Okay.
And these images, they claim, show, get this, a worm-like creature moving on the Martian surface.
Moving, like, alive.
That's the assertion. They describe seeing this worm-looking object moving through the dirt in a sequence of images. They say it's plain as day, and that it looks like it's wiggling up out of the dirt.
Wow. I mean, if true, that changes everything we think about Mars being sterile.
Absolutely. And for this source, that's kind of the point. They present this as direct visual proof that Mars isn't the dead radiation-covered planet they feel NASA often portrays.
And is that the only example of movement they show?
Oh no, they don't stop there. They feature another anomaly, this one apparently spotted by the Curiosity rover. They call it a worm-like structure moving in the cliffside on Mars.
Another one. Similar.
Similar concept, but visually different. This one, they say, looks like a screw and is much larger than the first little worm thing.
A screw, like metallic.
They describe it as a structure, yeah. And its movement, they suggest, looks like it's cutting out of the dirt, coming across and digging back into the soil.
So like it's burrowing deliberately.
That's the implication. They even speculate it could mark a possible tunnel entrance given its size and apparent interaction with the terrain. The level of detail in their visual analysis is, well, it's very specific.
Okay, so moving things now.
Yeah.
What about the past? Does the source look for signs of older life?
It does. It shifts focus to images they interpret as fossilized remains.
Fossils on Mars, what kind?
Well, they highlight one image showing what they see as, quote, some sort of canine-looking animal.
Like a dog.
Or a wolf.
Canine looking, yeah. They point out features they identify as a spinal cord, a perfect canine-like skull, even a jawbone, and a large eye opening.
And they think it looks convincing.
They claim it looks exactly like fossil finds here on Earth. Drawing that very direct visual parallel is key to their argument for complex life having existed there.
That's quite a leap. Are there other examples?
Oh, yes. This theme of Earth-like parallels continues. They show a comparison between an Earth fossil one with a prominent massive tailbone and spinal cord and an image from Mars.
Yeah.
And they argue the Mars image shows a very similar structure, a spinal cord and tail of something that could be similar to an alligator here on Earth. They even note identical bone structures.
Alligator-like. So reptiles, too, potentially. That's the suggestion based on their interpretation of the shapes. And it gets even more startling. The source claims they've found images showing humanoid-looking skulls.
Humanoid, like alien skulls.
That's what they're presenting them as. One is described as much larger than our skulls, but with recognizable eyes and nose areas, plus these two unique large circular pieces of bone at the bottom.
Huh. Anything else like that?
There's another image they point to, said to show a skull with clear eye holes and a triangular nose opening. Again, pushing this idea of not just life, but potentially intelligent humanoid life in Mars's past.
Okay, this is getting pretty wild. Worms, canine fossils, alligator spines, humanoid skulls.
And there's more on the creature front. They point out what they describe as an alien crab creature sitting on the inside of some rocks.
A crab? Seriously?
That's the description. They note a circular structure with multiple legs coming out of the side of it gripping these rocks. Even the source admits it looks creepy looking.
Okay, wow. So the picture they're painting of surface life, past and present, is bizarre and varied.
Exactly. And according to them, it supports their underlying assertion that there's a lot of things that NASA would like to keep secret.
So moving beyond these creatures and fossils,
Yeah.
does the source talk about structures, like signs of civilization?
It does, and it goes deep, literally. They propose the existence of extensive underground tunnels on Mars.
Tunnels, like cave systems or...
No, they describe something seemingly artificial. They point to images showing what they call glass see-through structure tunnels, apparently found inside cracks and fissures.
Glass tunnels on Mars. How?
That's the claim. Advanced engineering, sophisticated materials implied. They assert these tunnels stretch for miles in some cases.
Miles of glass tunnels underground. That's hard to picture.
And they take it a step further. They point to one image where they claim you can actually see one of the vehicles used inside these tubes.
A vehicle. What does it look like?
They describe it as a large, circular metallic object, something that almost looks like a large metallic ball. And critically, they say you can see sunlight reflecting off it as it moves through this alleged glass tunneling.
So not just tunnels, but a functioning transport system.
That's the implication, suggesting not just ruins, but potentially active, hidden infrastructure.
So if they're claiming tunnels in vehicles, what's the big conclusion they draw from that? Life now.
Absolutely. The source posits quite directly that there very well could be a thriving population living underground on Mars today.
Wow. A whole hidden civilization beneath the surface.
That's the picture they build. That finding such advanced infrastructure implies inhabitants protected from the surface conditions we observe. It suggests our view of Mars might be, well, profoundly incomplete.
Okay, so if Mars was thriving, maybe even with cities and tunnels, the obvious question the source must tackle is, what happened? Why does it look so desolate now?
Right. And the source provides a pretty dramatic, cataclysmic explanation for that.
Which is...
They assert that Mars likely was a planet just like Earth, teeming with life, but it was devastated and destroyed.
Destroyed how? Asteroid impact, natural disaster.
No, they believe it was by what, in my opinion, I believe was a nuclear war of some sort, where high-energy weapons were used on the planet that basically wiped it out.
A nuclear war on Mars.
Or at least a war using incredibly powerful energy weapons. They argue the scarring on the surface of Mars is obvious evidence of this.
The scarring, like the canyons and craters.
Some of them, yes. They argue certain features aren't natural, that they come directly from a high-energy weapon using some sort of electricity or laser-type weapon, a planet-altering conflict.
That's a massive claim. How do they support the idea that craters could be from weapons, not impacts?
Well, here's where it gets really specific. They claim that many Martian craters could only come from a high-energy weapon using electricity being shot down into the Martian surface, destroying everything in its path.
Only from a weapon? How can they say that?
They cite experiments done here on Earth as supposed scientific backing, suggesting similar destructive patterns can be created artificially, which, in their view, validates the weapon theory for Mars.
So Mars as a battlefield, essentially. A planetary battlefield.
A potential cautionary tale, if their interpretation holds any water. That's the implication.
Okay, so we have this theory of an ancient war. Does the source point to any debris, remnants on the surface today, besides the scars?
Yes, they argue there are many clues on the surface that have been left, comparing it to sifting through the rubble of any bombed-out town here on Earth.
Like what kind of clues?
They point to one specific object they call an alien-looking structure sticking out of the sand. Their description: it almost looks like a turret, a machine gun turret with a large pointed object sticking up.
A turret, like military hardware.
That's how they interpret it. Not a natural rock, but a manufactured object, a relic of conflict, perhaps?
And beyond that, any other structures or objects?
Definitely. They highlight another image showing a structure of some sort that NASA blatantly tried to blur out.
Blurred out? Why would they do that?
Well, the source speculates the object could be anything from an animal, a crab, a lobster, to a ship. The blurring itself is presented as proof of a cover-up, hiding something significant.
Interesting. And did you say something about a ship or a crash site?
Yes, that's another category. They show what they describe as an object that looks to be burrowing down into the surface of Mars, interpreting the scene as a crash site, with a disc-shaped object buried down underneath the topsoil.
A buried disk, like a classic UFO.
That shape comes up again. They also present an image of a metallic disc-shaped object sitting on the edge of a ridge on Mars, described as circular with apparent portholes or windows. Unmistakably artificial, according to the source.
Okay, so crashed disks, buried objects, maybe even things NASA's trying to hide.
Hmm.
What about things in the sky? Any UFO activity?
The source touches on that too. They show an image, apparently from Google Earth, featuring a triangular formation of lights coming out of a darkened crater on Mars.
Lights coming out of a crater. That seems
Yeah,
unlikely for a dead planet.
exactly. And they connect this to those reports from a few years back. Remember the Mars lights, the rover photograph?
Vaguely, yeah. There's a bit of a buzz about that.
The source brings those up again, noting NASA couldn't explain it satisfactorily, in their view. They suggest maybe lights are just a normal occurrence on the surface of Mars, given everything else they claim is there.
So mysterious lights, potential craft. What about bigger, more permanent-looking structures, like buildings or monuments?
Yes, they cover that as well. There's a striking comparison they present, an image they identify as an alien statue carved into the side of a rocky cliff on Mars, placed right next to a photo of an ancient Egyptian statue found here on Earth.
And they look similar.
The source highlights what they see as very strong similarities in design and posture, implying a connection or similar cultural practice.
And what about the most famous structure, the face on Mars?
Ah, yes, the face in Cydonia. The source definitely weighs in on that. They assert that NASA has deliberately degraded the photo over the years.
Degraded how?
They claim NASA edited it and messed with it so much that they want us to believe that, oh, it's not a face, it's just a mountain. They show comparisons, the original 1976 finding versus later images from 1998 and 2001, arguing it's clearly been edited and they've doctored it to obscure the original face-like features.
So another alleged cover-up related to potentially artificial structures.
That's the narrative. And it extends to other features, too. The source repeatedly mentions seeing domes on Mars.
Domes. Like biosphere domes.
Potentially, they provide several images. One dome sitting in the middle of a crater, another seemingly on a mountainside, and even a big black domed structure with the sunlight reflecting right off the top of it, looking like black volcanic glass, they say. Consistent claims of artificial shelters.
Okay, statues, a doctored face, domes. This is quite a collection. Anything else stand out?
Well, they revisit that famous controversial image of what looks like a man walking on the surface wrapped in some sort of black garb.
Oh, I remember seeing that one. It caused a stir.
Right. And the source emphasizes that NASA had a lot of trouble trying to explain this one away. They claim NASA was left fumbling for an explanation to feed to all the sheep out there, implying the official explanation, likely pareidolia or a rock formation, was just insufficient for many observers.
So wrapping this all up, this source, Secure Team, presents a Mars that's radically different from the mainstream view.
Radically different is putting it mildly, yeah.
We've gone through their claims of worm-like creatures, fossils resembling canine and alligator-like animals, even humanoid skulls, then underground glass tunnels with vehicles, evidence of an ancient nuclear war.
Plus surface clues like turrets, statues, mysterious domes, potential UFO activity, blurred objects, and that figure that looks like a man walking on the surface. It's an incredibly detailed alternative picture they paint.
It really makes you think about how visual information gets interpreted, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This source clearly believes these specific images constitute proof. Proof that Mars is not some dead radiation-covered planet. And proof that, in their words, there are a lot of things that NASA would like to keep secret.
It's definitely a powerful reminder that perspective is everything, especially when you're looking at fuzzy images from millions of miles away.
Exactly. Scrutinizing a source like this reveals just how varied interpretations can be, and it forces you to consider, what constitutes evidence and how narratives get built around it.
So whether you find these specific claims from Secure Team compelling, or maybe just fascinatingly speculative, looking at Mars through their lens is certainly an experience. It really prompts you to consider, if even a tiny fraction of this alternative picture were true, what would that mean for our understanding of the universe, life itself, and yeah, our own place in it all?